Why is it that even after 6 decades of living, loving, and learning, so many men still feel the need to whisper when it comes to masturbation? Let's break that silence right here, right now. Because the truth is, staying quiet about your sexual health doesn't protect your dignity. In fact, it often hurts it. When men over 60 open up and reconnect with their own bodies, something powerful happens not just physically, but emotionally and even spiritually. You see, masturbation isn't just a biological release. It's a conversation with yourself, a way to remind your body it's still alive and your heart still worthy of connection. It's not about performance, it's about presence. In this video, we're going to gently explore what most men wish they'd known decades ago: how self-pleasure after 60 can actually support better circulation, improve sleep, lift your mood, and even rebuild your self-esteem without shame, without guilt, and without judgment. So let's talk man to man. Because healing begins with honesty, and there's no better place to start than here. After 60, your body begins to speak a quieter language. The signals are more subtle, the rhythm's slower, but the needs don't disappear. In fact, for many men, this is when the conversation with their body becomes more important than ever. Masturbation isn't just about pleasure, it's about maintenance. Just like stretching your joints in the morning or taking a slow walk to keep your heart healthy, self-touch helps maintain your sexual health. It supports blood flow, keeps tissues active, and gently reminds the nervous system, I'm still here, I still matter. As testosterone levels shift and dopamine production declines, you might feel a drop in motivation, energy, or interest in sex. That's not weakness, it's biology. But here's the good news. Consistent, mindful self-stimulation can actually help reset those systems. It's like giving your internal engine a soft but steady ignition. You're not forcing performance. You're inviting aliveness. Many older men don't realize that masturbation can boost oxytocin, the hormone of connection, and lower cortisol, the hormone of stress. That's not just theory. That's better sleep, calmer moods, and sharper mental clarity. It's a moment of self-care that ripples far beyond the body. Emotionally, masturbation can help you reconnect with a sense of self-trust. For years, society has told men to either suppress desire or express it aggressively. But what if you could meet it with tenderness instead? What if touching yourself was less about need and more about permission? Think of it this way. Your body is like an old radio. You might have to turn the dial slowly, gently, and with care, but the music is still playing. You just need to tune in. So if you've ever felt like this part of you was fading, or that you had to give it up, think again. It's not gone. It's just waiting for you to come home. Howard was 74 when he admitted something he hadn't told anyone, not even his doctor. I haven't touched myself in nearly a decade, he said. After my wife passed, I just shut that part of me down. It wasn't about grief alone, it was guilt. He felt that self-pleasure without his partner would be some kind of betrayal. So instead, he turned inward, quietly withdrawing, slowly losing interest in even the small joys of life. His appetite faded, his energy declined. He stopped listening to music. He stopped smiling. But one morning, while reading an article about emotional healing in older men, a single sentence stopped him cold. Pleasure is not the enemy of grief, it's often the bridge out of it. Something clicked. Howard didn't rush into anything. He started by simply sitting with his body, feeling it again, gently, curiously. No pressure, no goal, just presence. Over weeks, something shifted. He noticed deeper sleep, fewer angry outbursts. Even his neighbors said he looked lighter, like he had let go of a hidden weight. And eventually, he found himself open to companionship again, this time not to fill a void, but to share a rediscovered self. What Howard learned is what many men don't hear enough. Masturbation isn't selfish. It's not immoral. It's a way to keep your emotional core alive, especially in the silence after loss. His story reminds us that our sexuality doesn't expire with age or heartbreak. Sometimes, it just waits patiently for permission to return. And often, healing begins not with a grand gesture, but with the quiet courage to say, "I'm still here. I still deserve this." Here's something no one tells you. The real problem often isn't age, it's guilt. Many older men carry decades of silent shame when it comes to their sexual urges. Whether from strict religious teachings, cultural norms, or painful pasts, that guilt doesn't just sit in your mind, it settles in your body. It tightens your chest. It slows your blood. It dampens desire. This is what we call the guilt loop. You feel desire. You judge yourself for it. That judgment causes stress. Stress weakens arousal. You feel broken. The cycle begins again. But here's the truth. Your body is not broken. It's simply responding to a storm it didn't create. One man I spoke to, 66 years old, said he couldn't maintain an erection for years, not due to a medical issue, but because every time he tried to connect with himself, he heard his father's voice in his head. That's disgusting. It wasn't until he began journaling those thoughts, breathing through the guilt, and approaching self-pleasure without expectation that things changed. Slowly, his body began to respond again. Freedom starts with compassion. When you release the guilt, you free your nervous system. And when your nervous system feels safe, your desire, like a sleeping animal, starts to wake up again. Just because your body has grown quieter doesn't mean it has stopped speaking. It's still talking to you, just in softer tones, subtler rhythms. After 60, many men assume their sexual signals have vanished, but often they've only shifted. You might no longer wake with urgency, but you may notice a calm warmth in your chest when you're relaxed, a gentle curiosity in your belly after a good night's sleep, a small spark when you're alone, undistracted. These are whispers from your body, not shouts, and they deserve to be heard. One man in his early 70s described it beautifully. He said, "I used to think I had to feel fireworks to be alive. Now, I realize a candle flame burns longer, and it still gives light." That's the lesson. You're not losing intimacy. You're entering a deeper phase of it. One where the body doesn't rush but invites. One where sensitivity increases, not disappears. If you pause, breathe, and touch your body without a goal, just with kindness, you may be surprised at what stirs. Tingling, warmth, longing. These are signs that your body still remembers and still hopes you'll listen. Think of your desire not as a fire that burns out, but as an ember that waits. It's not gone. It's just waiting for air. And the first breath? It starts with your attention. By the time you reach your 60s, your brain has already written 1,000 stories about sex, and not all of them are kind. Maybe you've linked pleasure to pressure. Maybe you've tied performance to worth. Or maybe you've only known intimacy through someone else's expectations, not your own curiosity. But here's something powerful to remember. Your brain is still flexible. Even now, it can be rewired not through force, but through gentleness. Neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to form new connections, new patterns. And this applies to your sexuality too. When you approach self-pleasure with softness instead of stress, you begin to teach your brain a new rhythm, one that says, "I don't have to rush, I don't have to prove, I just have to be present." Think of it like learning to play music again after years of silence. You don't start with fast notes, you begin with tone, breath, and listening. That's how healing happens. One widower shared with me how he created a simple ritual: dim lights, quiet music, warm oil. He told me, "I used to be afraid of touching myself. Now it feels like I'm playing a song just for me." This isn't about arousal alone, it's about peace. And every time you approach yourself with care, you're rewriting an old story, one gentle moment at a time. We often think of sexual health as separate from overall health, but the truth is, they're deeply connected, especially when it comes to one essential force inside your body: circulation. As men age, blood flow naturally slows. Arteries stiffen, vessels narrow, and oxygen delivery becomes less efficient. That's not just a heart issue, it affects everything from brain clarity to muscle tone, and yes, erectile function too. Masturbation, when done with care, acts like a gentle cardiovascular exercise. It stimulates the pelvic region, boosts nitric oxide production, and encourages better blood movement through areas that often get overlooked as we age. It's not a cure-all, but it's a meaningful part of maintaining vitality. One man, 68, told me he started practicing mindful arousal 3 times a week, not rushing to climax, just enjoying the buildup, breathing deeply, staying relaxed. After a few months, he noticed not only firmer erections but also less stiffness in his hips and improved energy in the mornings. He said, "It's like everything started moving again inside and out." Circulation is life. And when you stimulate blood flow in ways that feel good without pressure or shame, you're not just maintaining function, you're sending a message to your body. I want you to thrive. It's not about chasing youth, it's about reclaiming motion. And motion, at any age, is the essence of vitality. Too many men over 60 measure their sexuality by one narrow standard: the ability to get and maintain an erection. When that changes, as it naturally does, they assume desire is gone. Or worse, that they're somehow less of a man. But let's be clear, desire doesn't live in your penis. It lives in your mind, your memory, your imagination, your breath. Erection is just one expression. Intimacy, especially self-intimacy, is so much bigger. In fact, some of the deepest forms of pleasure in later life come not from performance, but from presence, from slowing down, from sensation without pressure, from exploring your skin, your breath, your heartbeat with the same curiosity you once gave to a new lover. One man in his late 60s shared that he no longer chased erections, but he discovered a new kind of arousal through slow touch, fantasy, and warm baths. It's less about finishing, he said, and more about feeling. He wasn't losing desire, he was finally listening to it. If you let go of the old scoreboard, you might just discover a deeper gameon where pleasure is not something to win, but something to welcome, where the body is not an opponent, but a companion, and where masculinity is not measured by rigidity, but by your willingness to stay soft enough to feel. James never considered himself the emotional type. A retired electrician from Ohio, he built his life on logic, tools, and getting the job done. Feelings were something you kept private. Intimacy? That was mostly physical and mostly in the past. After his 65th birthday, things changed. Erections became rare, libido unpredictable. He shrugged it off at first. Just aging, he told himself. Nothing to fix. But what he didn't expect was how empty he began to feel. Not just sexually, but emotionally. Like something vital was slowly slipping out of reach. One evening, alone after a long walk, James stood in front of his bathroom mirror. His hands moved to his stomach, where he used to feel strong. His reflection looked tired, foreign. That night, he didn't try to get off. He just laid in bed with his hand on his chest, breathing. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to simply feel without forcing. That moment became a practice. Each week, he gave himself 30 minutes of quiet time. No goal, no screen, no shame. Just slow breath, touch, curiosity. And over time, things shifted. He started sleeping better, felt more grounded. One morning, he even woke up with an erection and laughed out loud like a teenager. But more than that, James stopped feeling invisible to himself. He found a new kind of strength not in how his body responded, but in how gently he chose to respond to it. James's comeback didn't come with fireworks. It came with quiet, with presence, and with permission to care for himself, even in silence. If you're wondering where to begin, how to reconnect with your body after months, years, or even decades of disconnection, start small. The goal isn't to perform, it's to feel. And feeling takes safety, patience, and gentleness. Here are 3 simple practices that have helped many men over 60 reawaken pleasure not with pressure, but with presence. 1. The stillness ritual. Set aside 15 minutes once a week. Sit or lie in a quiet space. No phone, no goals, just breathe. Place one hand over your heart, one over your belly. Feel what's happening beneath the surface. If desire arises, let it. If not, that's okay too. This isn't about arousal, it's about returning to your body like an old friend. 2. Warm touch without target. Run a warm bath or shower. As you wash yourself, slow down. Use your hands like you would if you were comforting a loved one. No rush, no agenda. Just attention. You're not trying to get turned on. You're exploring how your body responds to kindness again. This alone can rewire old habits. 3. Breath. Fantasy. Lie down, close your eyes, and breathe slowly. Bring to mind a memory, a place, or a feeling that once made you feel alive. Let your mind wander not to porn, but to connection. A scent, a glance, a voice. Let that memory stir something gentle inside. That's your erotic intelligence, still alive, still yours. Each of these practices invites safety, and when your body feels safe, it begins to trust again. And trust is where pleasure grows. You don't need to chase youth. You don't need to fix anything. You just need to show up for yourself in the most tender way possible. Luis was 69 when he moved back to his hometown in New Mexico after retirement. The house was quiet, the nights were long, and though he enjoyed the peace, something inside him felt unfinished. He had raised children, worked hard, stayed faithful through a long marriage. But after his wife passed, Luis didn't know how to relate to his body anymore. Years of caring for others had taught him how to give but not how to receive. One spring evening, Luis sat on his porch watching the sun melt into the desert. A soft breeze touched his face. He felt it not just on his skin, but in his chest. Something stirred. A longing not for anyone else, but for something inside himself he hadn't touched in years. That night, he lit a candle. He stood in front of a mirror and gently looked at his body not with criticism, but with curiosity. He began a new practice, 5 minutes a night, just sitting with himself, sometimes with soft music, sometimes in silence. I wasn't trying to feel young again, he said. I was trying to feel present. And slowly, things bloomed. His laughter returned. His skin looked brighter. He even reconnected with an old friend from college with whom he shared long walks and quiet dinners. Luis called this period his second spring. It wasn't about starting over. It was about letting something long buried rise again gently, naturally, and on his own terms. If you've made it this far, pause and take a breath. You've just walked through something that few men your age are ever given. Permission. Permission to feel, to heal, to explore your sexuality not as a performance but as a part of your humanity. We've unlearned a lot today. That guilt is not a guide. That pleasure isn't measured by performance. That your body still speaks softly. And that listening is a skill you can reclaim. That self-touch isn't shameful, but sacred. That desire doesn't disappear with agate, just asks to be treated with more kindness. You've heard the stories of James, of Luis, of the quiet comebacks, the gentle returns, the embers that still glow beneath the surface. You've learned that pleasure after 60 doesn't have to look like it did at 30. In fact, it can be more honest, more nourishing, more deeply yours. And maybe most important of all, you are not alone. There are millions of men walking this path, feeling confused, embarrassed, unsure. But every time one of us speaks up, every time one of us chooses curiosity over shame, we light the way for someone else. So here's your takeaway. You are still whole. You are still worthy of touch, of softness, of joy. And you are still allowed to explore not in spite of your age, but because of it. Take your time. Be gentle. Listen inward. And if something stirs, let it. Your second spring may be just beginning. If this message spoke to something inside you, please consider subscribing or sharing this video with someone you trust. Your story might be the mirror someone else needs to begin their own.